Story number 1. This story is completely true. It happened when I was just 10 years old. Every summer, my family and my father's friend's family would go on a beach vacation together. Our favorite spot was Poria, beautiful place, known for its golden beaches and ancient temples. It became a yearly tradition we all looked forward to. Usually, we stayed in well-known hotels, but that particular year we hadn't booked ahead. Every hotel was full. The staff at one place told us a room would be available the next morning. So for one night, we had to stay in a small, unfamiliar hotel. It was far from the main area, close to a graveyard, away from both the temples and the beach. Still, we thought, it's just one night. We'll manage. The day went perfectly. We played in the sand, watched the waves, and returned to our room exhausted. Everyone went to bed early. But around 1 a.m., I woke up to a feeling I'll never forget. I couldn't breathe. When I tried to move, I was frozen. It felt like something heavy was pressing down on my chest, choking me. And somehow, I knew it wasn't human. The room was completely dark, but in the shadows, I saw a dark figure standing still. Terrified, I screamed for my mother. For what felt like minutes, I couldn't breathe properly. Then my mother rushed over, lifted me up, and shook me awake. My father carried me out into the hallway. It was dim and empty, just a worn-out sofa. No lights and no one at the front desk. The only light came from the glass door at the entrance, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Outside, stray dogs barked and howled, their sounds echoing through the night. My father laid me on the sofa and patted my cheek until I gasped and finally started to breathe again. As I looked down that dark hallway, I saw it. A figure stood in the corner, watching me. It was tall, and its long hair floated as if an invisible breeze was moving through it. I thought it might be a woman, but deep down, I knew it wasn't human. The air around it felt heavy with anger. I couldn't move. I just stared, frozen in fear. A moment later, we went back to our room. I didn't say a single word. The next morning, we checked out and moved to a well-known hotel. Everything there felt normal again. The rest of our vacation went perfectly, and I tried to forget what happened. But once we returned home, I finally told my parents what I had seen. That's when my heart nearly stopped because my mother admitted she'd seen it too. That same night, the same dark figure, standing in the same corner, silently staring. She never told me back then, and I never saw it again, but something inside me changed. From that night on, I was never the same. The dark terrified me. I couldn't walk into an unlit room or down a shadowed hallway, especially in hotels near graveyards. Story number 2. Hi, my name is Dan, and I've always wanted to share this story. It happened when I was about 11 years old. During a school break, my siblings and I spent the night at my aunt's house. We had a great time playing all day, and when it was time for bed, the three of us laid out a mattress in the living room and slept there with my cousin. To give you an idea of the setup, from where I was lying, I could see the hallway and my cousin's bedroom door. That night, I couldn't sleep. I had a sore throat and a terrible cough, so I stayed up watching YouTube on my cousin's tablet. It must have been around 3 a.m. when I finally decided to put the tablet away and try to rest. Just as I turned it off, I heard my cousin's bedroom door creak open. I looked toward it. No one came out. The door never closed again, either. I called out my cousin's name, but there was no reply. A chill ran down my spine, but I tried to brush it off. On the table near the door, there was a plastic bag. Suddenly, the handle began to move. Startled, I called my cousin's name again. The bag stopped instantly. It wasn't the wind, the windows were all shut, and the movement wasn't random. It looked like someone was pulling on it. Scared, I turned toward my sister, shut my eyes, and tried to sleep. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I opened my eyes again and glanced at the black screen of the TV in front of us. That's when I saw it. In the reflection stood a man wearing a hoodie standing right behind me. His posture made it look like he was standing right over me. At first glance, he resembled my cousin, but deep down, I knew it wasn't him. It wasn't anyone human. I turned around to check no one was there, but when I looked back at the TV screen, the reflection was still there. Closer this time. A cold wave of dread swept through me. I couldn't move or call for help. All I could do was lie there, tears silently streaming down my face. The figure kept drawing nearer and nearer. I whispered a prayer under my breath, clutching my sister's arm, until suddenly it disappeared. I kept my eyes tightly shut, trying to convince myself it was over. But that uneasy feeling of being watched never went away. When I finally opened my eyes again, I froze. He was sitting on the sofa behind me, one leg crossed over the other, an arm draped lazily on the armrest, staring at me like he belonged there. And just behind him stood another figure, tall, pale, and only half visible in the dim light. That was it for me. I jumped up and ran straight to my aunt's room, shaking her awake and telling her everything. She didn't believe me. She just gave me some cough syrup and told me to sleep beside her. Only then did I finally drift off. The next morning, I told my siblings and my cousin, but none of them believed me either. Still, I know what I saw. Maybe the figure in the TV was just my imagination, but how do you explain the moving plastic bag? Even now, the memory of that man sitting casually on the sofa, watching me like I was the intruder, still gives me chills. When I was living in an old block of flats in England, there was an abandoned hotel right next door, a massive 6-story building that had been decaying for years, long before I ever moved in. One afternoon, my cousin, my sister, and I decided we'd finally explore it. The hotel was surrounded by a tall, rusted fence, but it was falling apart, full of gaps. Slipping through was easy. Inside, the place was worse than we expected. Dried streaks of something that looked like blood smeared across the doors. Windows were shattered. The rooms were gutted, trashed by squatters or time itself. The air felt thick and heavy, like the whole building was warning us to leave. Behind the hotel, we found a patch of dead grass and an old collapsing shed. We didn't dare get too close. Even standing near it made our skin crawl. Then we heard a sharp scrape of metal against metal. It sounded exactly like someone sharpening a knife. We froze. None of us said a word. Then, without even looking at each other, we bolted back toward the hotel. But as soon as we pushed open the back door, a wave of rot hit us, the stench of decay, damp wood, and something that could only be described as death. Still, we pressed on. We climbed to the first floor, trying to convince ourselves it was all in our heads. That's when we made the worst decision of the day. We split up. I wandered into a room filled with broken shelves, torn books, and shattered furniture. In the corner stood a massive old wardrobe. At first, it looked completely ordinary. But then I heard it. A faint, steady sound, like long fingernails drumming slowly against the inside of the wood. My heart nearly stopped when I realized the tapping was coming from inside the closet. I didn't wait to find out what it was. Sprinted out of the room, down the hallway, and straight toward the stairwell. My cousin and sister saw the look on my face and took off right behind me. In the chaos, I tripped and hit the ground hard, tearing my leg open, but I didn't dare stop. We raced toward the exit, desperate to get out. Just before I pushed through the door, I made the mistake of looking back. She was there. A woman, maybe in her mid-20s, stood half-hidden in the doorway, watching us. Her long, greasy black hair hung over her face, and her clothes were ripped and filthy. She didn't move, didn't chase us, just stared from the shadows. That was the moment I realized we hadn't been alone in that hotel. When we finally made it home, I noticed blood running down my leg. The cut was deep, but what froze me was the shape. It wasn't random. The wound had somehow formed a small, crooked, smiley face. I never believed in ghosts before that day. But after what I saw and what I felt followed me home, changed my mind. Years later, they demolished the hotel and built new apartments on the same ground. But for me, that night never really ended. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more movie stories like this. Thanks for watching.